When they give you the antropad, dries up the slab in your thing. Scolding crushes your chest. It's like somebody standing and pouring ice cubes into your lungs. It's not a nice experience. I don't know why one man has to die 36 times just to prove the psychiatric appeal right or wrong.
Inquiry into Psychiatry 2005 consists of two public hearings, one on psychiatric drugs, which happened on Saturday and Sunday last weekend, and one on electroshock, which is happening on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. What makes this inquiry particularly unusual and historical, additionally, is that we have a democratic mandate for these hearings. Last summer, we went to the psychiatric survivor community, discussed the possibilities, asked the psychiatric survivor community what they wanted us to attend to, and they voted. And the votes came out almost identical for drugs and electroshock, from which we knew we had to attend to drugs and electroshock, and these hearings are the product of that democratic mandate. What additionally is important and what makes this inquiry an historic first is that in this inquiry, we are only hearing, exclusively hearing, from the people who have been subjected to these treatments. So today, we will only be hearing from people who have been subjected to or directly threatened with electroshock. Let me be clear, this is your day. There is no line here you have to uphold, not Kappa's line, not Psychiatry's line, not anyone's line. We want to hear your story, your line.
I do say I am a survivor, though, because I have survived psychiatry's assault on my mind, my spirit, and my body. In the context of ECT, this is specifically an assault on my brain. I was never given any information about potential risks, let alone any reliable information about the potential risks. Psychiatry itself does not provide reliable information about what potential risks of ECT are. What I was exposed to was the usual propaganda, psychiatric propaganda, the sort of stuff you see, you hear in the media, frequently. The idea that ECT saves lives, ECT is now safe and effective, it is not damaging, it is now safe and modern. It's as though beating someone with a plastic stick is much improved than depending on the old wooden stick. I was shown a short video in the hospital. The video actually showed the person going through the course of being shocked. What I don't remember the video showing was that the video did not show the person awakening in the recovery room, alone and disoriented. I don't remember the video showing that individual shuffling back to the ward lounge, ashamed under the watchful gaze of fellow inmates. I'm becoming firmly convinced that in psychiatric training, neurology must be offered as an early morning class because the psychiatrists are obviously missing something very important. That very obvious and important thing is that blunt force trauma to the brain is not healing. Blunt force trauma to the brain is damaging. When you're in such great pain that suicide seems the only reasonable way to escape that pain, you cannot be said to give consent. In the absence of consent, the only ethical course is to avoid any extreme interventions. Support and compassion do not cause brain damage. And as far as I know, no one has ever died from oversleeping.
I had 30 bilateral treatments over the course of a couple of months. When I woke up, I would be on a gurney in a hallway, and I would have no idea what year it was, what country I was in, things like that. But over the course of a couple of hours, I would figure out what year it was, what country I was in. But as the treatments progressed, the memory became more and more difficult to get back, and there was bigger and bigger gaps each time afterwards. I had to do extensive research into who I was, what my life had been, how to do things like read and write and do math. It was like I was sort of an infant relearning how to exist in the world and who I had been before all this happened. And there are still very, very large gaps in my memory about a big part of my life. And like other people who have undergone ECT, I sort of dread people coming up to me and going, "You remember me?" Because quite often I don't. And it's always interesting for me to hear people that I know talking about what I was like in the past, and there's always stories coming up that I have no memory of, especially the period between 1995 and 1999, since that period of time really just doesn't exist for me, except from research that I've done to find out about what happened during that period of time.
When it comes to shock, it's very difficult to isolate what it does to you, because it invades your entire being. Like, you are what you are because you've had shock. And it makes a difference of what could have been, what is, and what will be. When I went into Branson Hospital mental health unit, after about, I'd say, 6 weeks on various medications, basically Largactil or chlorpromazine, they decided that they weren't working, and I went into a session with my doctor, and I was extraordinarily depressed, I admit to that. Went into a session with my doctor, my wife, and myself, and he said, "Mel, we're gonna try shock." And I was, well, frankly, I was bawling. I was crying my eyes out. I just, what is this shock? Tell me a little bit. Told me nothing about it. Anyways, I resisted. I said, no, my father had shock. I know from his life that it did him no good whatsoever, and I'm not gonna have shock. I came back and I said, okay, doctor, I'll have shock treatment, but only one. And you know why I'm doing it? I said, I'm doing it because I want to see what it was like for my father when he had his. And I said, I'll only take one. He never said they come in series. He never said how many there were. He never told me any side effects of it. All I know is that I was terribly, terribly afraid. I'd never had shock. Before the shock treatment, I did not sleep. From the moment I heard that I was going to have shock until after the shock, I did not sleep. I was watching the clock, counting the seconds as if before an execution. And as a matter of fact, I just made this note to myself when I was sitting down. I hope death isn't as bad as a shock treatment. I can't even remember, I can't even depict in my own mind now the fear that I had of it. Like getting up the morning before a shock treatment. No breakfast, no water, no anything. You line up, you pick short straws, and you go in. That it's extraordinarily deleterious, not in a physical sense, but more in the sense of the spirit and mind. One, your memory, your capacity to remember, your ability to learn new material, your concentration ability. Like I have to wait for those 3 or 4 hours in a day when I can actually concentrate on reading. Like I do a lot of reading. As a matter of fact, I do more reading than I do of any other activity. But I have to wait for those 3 or 4 hours late at night or early in the morning when I can actually concentrate on reading, because it is extraordinarily hard, that I really do think that shock should be banned. And I think the only validity of shock is that it is a quasi-scientific or scientific patina that psychiatrists put to their armory of tools or nostrum.
I feel that this extreme treatment has numbed my emotions, which continues today. The deep emotions that are or were a part of my person have disappeared. It feels like a part of my being has been wiped away, lost somewhere. And it is as if looking through a window, watching the activity going on inside, trying to be a part of that, but never really being able to connect. And I felt like that ever since. The psychiatrist that I guess cared for me during the times that I was at Oshawa Hospital, he told me after my last stay that I have to change my life and the situation that I have at home, or he can always bring me into the hospital every few months to get zapped.
When I was about 23 years old, they diagnosed me again as manic depressive. They gave me shock treatments. They run in a series of 12s. I had 36. At this period of time, I had 12, and believe me, they're no fun. The medication at the time they gave me before the opera, before the procedure, the memories before, I remember it all. It's almost like I died 36 times. So when they give you the Antropad, dries up the slab in your thing, scolding crushes your chest. It's like somebody standing and pouring ice cubes into your lungs. It's not a nice experience. I don't know why one man has to die 36 times just to prove the psychiatric field right or wrong. I think it's uncruel, unmanly, and I'm not even humane to give people ECT.
Did any doctor bother to explain to you any of the major effects or what to expect, and do you remember giving any kind of consent?
They told me I was a certifiable patient, that I was not informal. I had no right in the situation at all. They would do what they wished to do to me.
Excuse me, did you just say they told you had no right?
No, because I was certifiable. I was not in mental state to make a decision on my own. So they would be making the decisions for me. Did you think I wanted to be wired to the bed? I don't think so.
Did they also, just a follow-up question, did any doctor, including the one who prescribed shock, give you any alternative or mention any possible alternative to shock?
Well, I said I was on lithium, I was on Haldol, I was on stelazine at the time, but when it was brought to my attention that they were going to buzz me or give me shock treatments, no, nothing was mentioned, that there was no other alternative but to have this treatment, that I was an involuntary patient, certified by a psychiatrist. They could do what they wish with my mind, my body, my soul, my heart, and they did. But I was able to fight back somehow.